Soloist here, and here's some comments on the new Warbringers Azshara cinematic. It is superb. And so we're looking here at the very beginning. This is zin-azshari. This is her city. And it looks to me not so much like Suramar city, which is what's left of it most recognizably. This looks like Azuna when it was new. Amazing, actually. Now, this huge tsunami that's coming through here that she is blocking off by herself, that is not just a tsunami of something blowing up. This is the single big continent of the world breaking up into 4 large continents and a bunch of islands, of which they are now becoming the Broken Isle. This is the breakup of a world. This is the sundering. And she's so powerful, she's able to hold her island above the water, hold the waters back of the destruction of the world. So just a few comments, as not going to go through the whole thing, but just to point out what you're seeing. Don't know why the fish that's telling her to let go has a female voice. Normally you would expect a loon to be talking to her in a female voice, not so likely through the eye of a fish. So not sure what's going on with the female voice of the fish. Azshara says, this is not the deal she made. That's not nya'lotha that she's talking to, which is that voice that you're hearing in the background. That is Sargeras's deal she's talking about. She made a deal for power and beauty and longevity, and she made that deal with Sargeras in return for bringing the Burning Legion into Azeroth and using the Well of Eternity, which is the huge arcane well that the biggest Azeroth has ever known, that was in the edge of zin-azshari, and that was the deal she made, was to use that well and its powers to bring these demons in. Now, she was given so much power that she was actually more powerful than any of Sargeras's demons. She was second only, well, third after Sargeras, but under Sargeras, she was second only to Archimonde, and Archimonde was a corrupted Draenei who was the more powerful than any of the demons. He was Sargeras' second in command during the Burning Legion Crusade. And he was killed, which is why you did not see him in Legion, because he's not a demon. He can't get, reconstituted in the Nether and brought back. But that just shows you how much power she has. That tsunami you see coming over those mountains are high mountain. That's how high that tsunami is. So, yeah, the deal that she made, this was not the deal, but Sargeras isn't here right now. This is not the demons she's dealing with. This is the overuse of the Well of Eternity, blowing the Well of Eternity up and splitting the one big continent of Old Kalimdor into 4 continents: New Kalimdor on the west, Eastern Kingdoms on the east, Northrend across the top cap, and the center-south being Pandaria, and then the islands, groups of Kultiras and Zandalar being broken off as well. And then what you see in Broken Shore, in Broken Isles particularly, is the remainder of zin-azshari, which basically must have been taken all of Val'sharah and Azuna, as well as Suramar, and whether I don't know if you know or not, but Suramar City, what's left of it in the north, is just a very tiny piece. The rest of it is all underwater, which occurred with the sundering here. And it was so large that the tomb of Sargeras, which is called, on top of it is called the Cathedral of the Night. The reason it's called that is that it was the Temple of Elune before it was used for Sargeras' tomb, and before it sank in the sundering. It was the Temple of Elune of zin-azshari, Azshara's Temple of the Loon. And so it would have been roughly in the middle of the city. So you can judge from that how large zin-azshari was. Azuna would have been a, I've said the educational component, the academy. That was the territory of Prince Ferondus, one of her highborn, one of her elites, her nobles. And Ferondus complained to her and rebelled against the bringing in of Sargeras and the demons, and for that she cursed him and his people to die and be ghosts forevermore. And so it was actually not Ferondus doing this to his people. Ferondus was a good guy. He tried to do the right thing. It was actually Azshara who damned his people to the infinity of being ghosts. So that portion was part of zin-azshari as well. And the great tree Shaldrazel sat on the edge of the Well of Eternity. So that means that the Well of Eternity was so large that it went up to the northern edge of Azshara and down along probably the western edge of Asuna as well. The picture of the Black Empire that they're using is a variant, lightened up and simplified of the picture that's in Chronicles in Volume 1, which is the 3-volume series they, Chris Metzen and other attributaries have published over the last 3 years, which is supposed to be the new canon. And it has been expanded and turned here into a moving picture. Maybe it always was, but I've never seen it like this. It's been enhanced. And that was a horror of a place. You can see, if you look down on the ground, you can see that there is just ooze and goo and lava everywhere. There's tentacles everywhere. There's oozes, and everything was enslaved to the old gods. Now, who is the old god who's talking with her? That would be N'Zoth. He was the one who did the deal to turn Azshara and her people into the Naga. But who that is in the picture of the Black Empire, I'm not sure. I always sort of thought that was Cthulhu, but is it Cthulhu or is it Yogg-Saron, or are they all look like lots of eyes, lots of tentacles, or is it N'Zoth? It's really, I don't know if anyone really knows. You notice the architecture is very Egyptian obelisk, which means it's very typical of the Karaji and the Oldham area, which typically are actually Titan facilities. So there's a little bit of a here. The Black Empire was when the old gods ruled Azeroth, when they first came to Azeroth, and they were raising up the three great insect tribes, the Karaji, the Mantid in Mantid Ves, which became Calaxy-Ves, and the Azul Nerub, or the Nerubians, up in the Ice Crown Citadel area, so Northrend. So basically the old gods created those advanced intelligent insects, but the architecture, that's a bit of a question as to which came first, the chicken or the egg there. But it's just wonderful to see. It's a horrible picture. She says it's magnificent. That shows you how corrupted she was, to see everything enslaved to these old gods and their servants, Cathraxi and whatever crawling around, faceless ones crawling around. It would have been absolutely hideous and covered the whole, basically, of Azeroth. But it's interesting to see the piece animated. So, and of course, canon is changing. When I always thought about N'Zoth in the past, it was more that, he was like a great big octopus. But the creatures with the gazillion eyes were normally things like Cthulhu and Yogg-Saron. Maybe Y'Shaarj, we don't really have a lot of pictures. He had 7 heads, apparently. Or it. I don't think they have gender. Just repulsiveness. But So you're seeing an interesting mix here also. You're seeing her talking to N'Zoth. She's underwater, but when you see the picture of the old empire, it starts to merge together. Is she being given an image of being above water? But then you see below water, you see tentacles, you see his prison bars, then you see these obelisks, and it looks like he's in Anchorage. It looks like you're talking to Cthulhu, who is buried under Silithus, or under Anchorage, somewhere in that area. The old Silithus, if you go talk to Zydormi and look at it, all those tentacles that are all over the zone poking out of the ground, those are all Cthulhu's servants, and maybe even a few of his own tentacles. And you notice now that Silithus has been destroyed, where they sent you over to take the head of the Twilight cultist. The Twilight cultists, instead of playing with the old god tentacles, are now playing with void tentacles coming through patches of void. So that's interesting. Who was Sargeras aiming for with that sword? Was he aiming for just Azeroth, or was he aiming for Cthulhu, who is also under Silithus? And worse, has he conjoined the blood of both of them? That would be really bad. So to me, that was an interesting piece there. It looked as if he had transported her to his alternate universe, like past version of the Black Empire, with his tentacles stretching through. It's interesting when it goes back to the underwater city, or what appears to be an underwater city, where his tentacles are imprisoned. If that is N'Zoth, which it sure must be, because N'Zoth did the deal with Azshara, then that's nya'lotha. And it looks, the Egyptian obelisk style, it looks like a Titan facility under the sea. The fish is a highly relevant symbol to the puzzle box of Yogg-Saron. One says, the fish know all, they know the cold, they know the deep. So you have a fish chatting to her and being the agent of N'Zoth. What's also interesting is when you first see him talk to her through the fish, there are 7 spots of light, fisheye type light, and the puzzle box talks about the black goat that is out on the edge that has 7 eyes. The fisheye as a common unifying theme is really a good art design. And she raises her head, and now she has the multi-eyes of N'Zoth on her cap. So people have been looking forward to fighting Azshara in a way for a long time, but since Archimonde, no one has faced a being of that kind of power in a raid, so it would be a very interesting fight. Anyway, WoW Soloist out.